Once dismissed as pure fantasy, the idea of the United States acquiring Greenland is now being taken seriously in the halls of Washington. What was once a topic for speculation and late-night jokes has, in recent years, become a subject of genuine policy debate and strategic consideration among American lawmakers and officials. Recent unofficial statements from American policymakers have hinted at a renewed and growing interest in Greenland, driven by the Arctic's rapidly increasing strategic and economic value. Behind closed doors, think tanks and government agencies are quietly reassessing the region's importance, and the conversation is shifting from if to how. The melting Arctic ice has opened up new shipping lanes that were previously impassable and revealed vast untapped reserves of oil, gas, and rare earth minerals. This transformation is turning Greenland into a critical hub for global trade, energy extraction, and military positioning, making it a strategic prize in the new geopolitical landscape. European capitals, especially Copenhagen, have strongly condemned the idea, calling it a violation of international law and Danish sovereignty. Yet, beneath the official statements, there is a growing sense of unease and anxiety spreading throughout Europe's political circles, as leaders grapple with the implications of America's ambitions. The United States frames its interest in Greenland as a necessary move to counter the expanding influence of China and Russia in the Arctic, securing vital sea lanes, gaining access to rare earth minerals, and maintaining a military edge are all cited as reasons for this renewed focus, as the region becomes a new arena for great power competition. For Europe, however, this is far more than just a diplomatic spat. It represents a direct challenge to the post-war order that has underpinned transatlantic relations for decades, and raises serious questions about the reliability of NATO's security guarantees in an era of shifting alliances and rising tensions. The very notion that a core ally could contemplate the annexation or acquisition of another member's territory shakes the alliance to its core, undermining trust and unity at a time when collective security is more important than ever. Now, Europe faces the unsettling and unprecedented task of preparing for a crisis it never expected to come from its closest partner. The future of the alliance and the stability of the Arctic may depend on how both sides navigate this new and uncertain chapter. Europe faces a stark dilemma: defend the sanctity of borders and international law, or preserve its indispensable alliance with the US. Allowing an ally to seize territory would undermine the very principles on which Europe is built, setting a dangerous global precedent. Yet, the US remains Europe's security backbone, especially with the ongoing war in Ukraine. Confronting Washington could jeopardize vital support, but inaction would erode Europe's credibility and embolden other powers. The choice is between risking the alliance or sacrificing core values. Each path carries catastrophic risks. Navigating this crisis demands a delicate balance to deter American overreach without shattering the transatlantic partnership. Many European leaders urge caution, arguing that the alliance with the US is too vital to risk over Greenland. The war in Ukraine depends on American support. Losing it could be disastrous for European security. These pragmatists advocate for limited responses, diplomatic protests, and legal challenges, while avoiding actions that might provoke a US withdrawal. They see the Greenland issue as serious, but manageable, believing that institutional checks in the US could restrain executive overreach. The priority is to maintain unity against Russia, not to escalate a crisis with Washington. Back-channel negotiations and unified diplomatic opposition are seen as the best tools to de-escalate. For this camp, the alliance's long-term health outweighs the immediate outrage over Greenland. The goal is to manage the crisis, not to trigger a permanent rift. Others insist that Europe must respond forcefully and decisively to any potential US move on Greenland, emphasizing the importance of defending not only international law but also the continent's own credibility and influence on the world stage. For these voices, the issue is not just about territory, but about upholding the very principles that define Europe's role in global affairs. They warn that inaction would expose Europe's double standards, making it difficult to criticize similar actions by other powers, and would seriously undermine its stance against Russian and Chinese aggression. If Europe fails to act, it risks being seen as inconsistent and weak, eroding the moral authority it has worked so hard to build. This faction argues that only strength and resolve can deter further transgressions. They believe that any sign of weakness will not only invite exploitation by adversaries like Russia and China, but could also embolden even close allies to disregard European interests in the future. The EU's unity and mutual solidarity are at stake. failure to act decisively could fracture the Union, deepen divisions among member states, and erode the trust that hold the bloc together. The consequences could be long-lasting, affecting Europe's ability to act collectively on other critical issues. A robust and coordinated response, they argue, would not only re-establish deterrence, but also force Washington to treat Europe as an equal partner, rather than a junior ally. Such a stance would send a clear message that Europe is prepared to defend its interests. They believe that only by standing firm, showing unity, and taking concrete action can Europe preserve its sovereignty, strategic relevance, and the respect of the international community. In their view, the greatest risk lies not in confrontation, but in doing nothing, allowing Europe's influence to fade and its values to be ignored. Ultimately, Europe's future as a credible global actor depends on its willingness to defend its own principles, interests, and the unity that has defined it for decades. The most assertive option is a European military deployment near Greenland, a show of force to deter US action. Led by major naval powers, a multinational task force could be framed as a defensive exercise, signaling that unilateral moves will meet resistance. The goal isn't conflict, but deterrence, making any annexation attempt too risky and unpredictable for Washington. However, the risks are immense. Miscalculation could spark a crisis, and unity among European states would be hard to achieve. Some nations might refuse to participate, exposing divisions and weakening Europe's position. Such a move could also harden US resolve, making diplomatic solutions harder to find. The military option is high stakes and fraught with peril, reserved only for the gravest scenarios. Europe's economic tools offer a more plausible response. The EU's anti-coercion instrument allows for targeted tariffs and restrictions against countries engaging in economic aggression. Originally aimed at China, it could be used against the US, hitting key exports and industries to create domestic pressure in Washington. Regulatory measures, like antitrust probes or suspending data sharing, could further target American corporate interests. This approach leverages Europe's market power, shifting the conflict to the economic sphere. Yet a trade war would hurt both sides, risking recession and backlash. Deploying these tools requires careful calculation to maximize deterrence while minimizing self-inflicted harm. Europe could also threaten to sell off US Treasury bonds, destabilizing American financial power. Such a move would drive up US interest rates, shake global markets, and challenge the dollar's dominance. The psychological impact alone could force Washington to reconsider its actions. However, this financial nuclear option would trigger worldwide panic, harming Europe as much as the US. European banks and economies are deeply tied to the US system. Mutual destruction is almost guaranteed. This is a last resort measure to be considered only if all other options fail. The mere threat, discreetly communicated, might be enough to deter escalation. Every European response exists on an escalation ladder, requiring careful calibration of risk and reward. The aim is to deter the US and compel a policy reversal without spiraling into open conflict. Graduated responses, starting with diplomatic condemnation and legal action, can isolate Washington and buy time for negotiation. Economic measures and the threat of financial retaliation serve as further deterrence, while military options remain a last resort. The key is unity, credibility, and clear communication, both to signal resolve and to keep diplomatic off-ramps open. Europe must show it's willing to act, not just bluff. The goal isn't to win against the US, but to manage the crisis and preserve both sovereignty and the alliance. Success depends on Europe's ability to act as one, with a coherent and credible strategy. The Greenland crisis forces Europe to confront its own power and strategic responsibilities. For years, Europe has operated in a world where its security was largely guaranteed by others, allowing it to focus on prosperity and internal cohesion. But now, the shifting global landscape demands a new kind of self-awareness. Decades of reliance on US security have left Europe strong in economics and regulation, but hesitant in hard power. The continent's influence is undeniable in trade, finance, and diplomacy. Yet when it comes to military might and rapid crisis response, Europe often finds itself looking across the Atlantic for reassurance. This episode reveals that Europe's challenge isn't a lack of leverage, but the will to use it collectively. The tools are there: economic clout, diplomatic reach, and technological innovation, but unity of purpose remains elusive. The Greenland crisis exposes the urgent need for Europe to act as one, rather than as a collection of competing national interests. The crisis is a call for a more balanced, mature partnership with the US, one based on mutual respect, not dependency. Europe must move beyond the comfort of old alliances and step into a role where it can shape outcomes, not just react to them. This means engaging with the US as equals, sharing burdens and responsibilities. Europe's future as a global actor depends on integrating military, economic, and diplomatic tools into a unified strategy. Only by combining these strengths can Europe protect its interests and values on the world stage. This integration is not just about defense, but about projecting stability and influence in an unpredictable world. Whether it can rise to the challenge remains uncertain, but the debate itself marks a turning point. For the first time in decades, European leaders and citizens are openly questioning their place in the world and what it will take to secure it. The act of grappling with these questions is a necessary evolution in Europe's strategic thinking. It signals a willingness to adapt, to reconsider old assumptions, and to forge a new path forward, one that is more self-reliant and confident. The Greenland scenario may be hypothetical, but its lessons are real and overdue. It serves as a wake-up call, reminding Europe that the time to prepare for the future is now, before the next crisis arrives.